Welcome to Half a Point, the podcast that saw North Melbourne almost pull off the upset against the Lions. We called it here at half a point, but they just couldn't get that extra point. But we'll break it all down. We'll break it all down. This week is our round 10 best bets episode. We will each be giving our five best bets against the spread. To help me break it down, I am joined by my co-host Carlton Superfan Cuss. Mate, how we going?
Yeah, we're going good. Another good week of footy, our picks for us, which we'll get into shortly. But yeah, looking forward.
Yeah, mate, we're on fire here at half a point. As a reminder, leave a like on this video and subscribe if you want to go 7-3 ATS every week. We're also active on Instagram, TikTok, and X, so give us a follow on those. And also a reminder to please gamble responsibly. All right, Cast, we'll jump into round nine here. Starting off with Freo Collingwood, I said Freo was the right side. Freo was the side at -2.5. I posted the TikTok and I got clowned. I believe it was the right side, man. Like they dominated that game. They should have won, to be honest. They should have covered the plus 11.5 early on in the week as well. So pretty brutal all around. But that's what you get with these sorts of teams like Fremantle. We said that they were frauds. So we'll take the victory lap there. But a smart veteran team in Collingwood just found a way to win, and that's what happens. So numbers suggested that Freo was a side. The numbers on the day suggested Freo was a side, except it didn't pan out happening on the scoreboard there. But not mad at the pick, just what happens.
Yep. Next up we got St Kilda and Carlton. So the Blues are able to get the win and the cover as the favourites, which you like to see as a Carlton supporter. Yeah, it was good. It was a good game. A lot of it was a very hard fought game from both sides. I think both teams played pretty well. But yeah, ended up with Harry Mackay kicking the sealer with a minute to go. So yeah, love to see it. Next up we had Melbourne and Hawthorn, which was it was looking so good
Brutal,
until three-quarter time. I had my hopes up as well. But yeah, it was so hard to watch. They just piled on goals in no time.
mate.
Um,
That's about as unlucky as you can get, mate. Melbourne was clearly the right side. You were on the right side. You were catching
yeah,
4 goals, and it was like the scores were level in the fourth, wasn't it? Like so.
yeah,
So that's so brutal, man. Like again, it
yeah,
happens, but I think it's a trend with Melbourne in the fourth quarter. I think they haven't really they've been outscored I think every time except for West Coast games. So I guess if you're on Melbourne, just beware that you might get backdoored. But that was pretty brutal because you were on the right side there.
yeah. And then next up, we had Essendon and Sydney. So Essendon were able to come away with the win by 8 points. They nearly choked it there a little bit. They in that fourth quarter, they couldn't get it. They couldn't look at any scoring shots. Only scored 1 point in that last quarter. But they did pretty well the rest of the game to make sure that they maintained that lead and get the goal, get the win and the cover. So well done to Essendon.
Yeah, the Essendon plus the points was always the right side. That was never not going to cover.
Yeah,
So yeah, well done there. Gold Coast Western Bulldogs. I don't think either of us were on this. I said last week Western Bulldogs might have been the side. Wouldn't have been a terrible pick, but yeah, we just see Gold Coast in Darwin just unstoppable. Bulldogs almost came back at the end and almost had a miracle cover. If they kicked another goal, ended up winning, they would have covered as well. But yeah, bad luck there if you were on Western Bulldogs. Yeah, Gold Coast again catching points in Darwin. They're unstoppable there. So another win for Gold Coast in Darwin. Port Adelaide, Adelaide. Oh mate, this was a game and a half, mate. That was such a good watch. I thought when they're up by like 20, I think in the fourth Adelaide, I thought this is pretty dead. But then Port Adelaide ended up storming home. They probably should have won in the end. I'm pretty upset that they didn't win. Um, Mate, when Berry was running in the fourth, in like 2 seconds left, and kicked the ball, and if he scored a goal, I wouldn't have covered. It would have been like
yeah.
a 10 or 11 point win, but he kicked it behind, thank goodness. It would have been brutal, brutal, brutal if I didn't cover there. So
Yeah.
Fremantle was aside. You want to take the dog in these matchups, so worked out well for me there. And then Richmond West Coast, man. I told you Richmond laying points is insane. It was the cover was pretty much never on. West Coast were covering pretty much all game, except for the first quarter a little bit there. Again, this one's more of a coin flip. Like I'm not going to say West Coast should have won. Richmond probably deserved the win. Yeah, you can say either side probably deserved the win. That's fine. West Coast had a chance to win, but we saw that famous Tom Brown tackle now. But yeah, the plus 11.5 again wasn't never really in doubt. So pretty strong from me there. But then here the next one, Geelong GWS. Great call from you here.
Yeah. What a good contest as well that was. That was, yeah, one of like best games I've seen in a few weeks. Yeah, but yeah, it was just back and forth the whole game. Geelong were able to respond to every single goal that GWS called. I think you messaged me straight away, like, dude, these guys just kick straight out
Mate,
two
the
goals left
Giants
center.
kick a goal. The Giants would kick a goal. The ball would go back to the middle, and an instant center bounce goal for
Yeah,
Geelong. I was like, can we catch a break here? But yeah,
yeah,
the plus 17.5 was never really in doubt, was it?
yeah. It was a good call in the end as well for Giants to get the win. Called it here as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly right. Yeah, they just own Geelong at UHBA. North Melbourne, Brisbane. Man, we said it off the top, man. I thought North were on there for the win. It would have been one of the greatest calls. We say all this time, man, like, and this round sort of showed it probably the best. This competition is so even. We saw like
Mm,
something about 10.33 average margin being the lowest in like 50 years or something like that. So that just shows us like, this competition's a lot more evil than people perceive. That's why we always jump on these dogs, man. Like the yes, some teams are better than others, obviously, but this is like the first team versus like the 17 team, and it ended up in the draw. You can always be confident. Like Richmond beat Carlton at the start of the year when no one saw it coming. So
yeah,
um, I have to bring it up every few weeks. Um,
yeah.
but it just shows us and it just gives us confidence to back these dogs week in and week out. This is the type of week that we love because, the more even the contest is, the better it is for us who back the
Hmm.
underdog here. So almost glory, but you got to push this. I got my money back at least. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. All right, so I went 4-1, so huge week for me, and you went 3-2, so great week for you as well. So that's all we can say. Like if we get 3-2 every week, we're happy. As you
Hmm.
say, professionals go 56%. So if you go 3-2, that's 60%, obviously. So now I'm sitting at 25-20, so 55.56%, so almost right there. And you're at 24-21, so you're at 53.33%. So you're right there as well. So we're getting up there here. We've sort of took a few weeks to get in that groove, and now we've sort of hit a nice little groove here. So hopefully we can keep it going for the rest of the season. So going to numbers a little bit. Last week the underdogs technically went 7-2 ATS. If you looked at the numbers that we provided last week in our contest, but Collingwood and the Suns ended up closing as favourites. So if you take that into account, underdogs went 5-4 ATS. So pretty good week still for the dogs, but pretty even as well, I'd say. So again, that bodes well. This is the exact type of week that we expect every week. So couple good weeks, but let's keep it rolling now. Let's keep it rolling. Let's jump
Yep.
into round 10 here. We have Gold Coast versus Hawthorn, Thursday night game at TIO Stadium in Darwin. The last time they played, Gold Coast were 25.5 point favorites and end up winning by 53 at People's First. This time around, Gold Coast are 6.5 point favorites. Where are you going with this one, Cuss?
So this one is one that I'm trying to squeeze into my five. I'm hoping to jump on Gold Coast at -6.5 here. They do seem really just dominant at this stadium for some reason. And yeah, I just like the way that they play. You might think that Hawthorn's back to where they were, but they did just they beat Melbourne. And it was really just that last quarter where they really looked like they played a really good game. Um, so yeah, I'm looking at Gold Coast here at -6.5. What about
Me,
you?
Gold Coast -6.5 here. This number was at 2.5 earlier in the week, so all the money's been coming in on Gold Coast. This is an obvious pick here. Gold Coast and Darwin, like we said, they're just unstoppable. Like, and they also cover, like I think they've covered every single time the last seven occasions as well. So, um, they're definitely the side. Hawthorn at plus 6.5, like I can get it, but I think if you jump on Hawthorn, it has to be double choices. It has to be like 11, 12.5 for it to make sense, really. That's where you might get some value. But we see Gold Coast, man, they hammer teams up in Darwin as well. So I think with that Western Bulldogs game, it got close. I just think it's the Western Bulldogs team. Like they're just really good. I think they're a lot better than this Hawthorn team. This Hawthorn team isn't the same team as last year. They had a few layups the last few weeks, so I think you're getting a pretty good number at 6.5. You probably got a better number earlier in the week, obviously, but yeah, I think I jump on it now. Gold Coast minus 6.5. I'd also jump on like alternative lines. I've bet minus 50.5 as well because there's a world where they just blow Hawthorn out of the water. Like there's a world where that
Yeah.
happens, right? So getting a lot of value there at like $10. So yeah, give me Gold Coast minus 6.5 here. Moving on to Sydney versus Carlton Friday night game at the SCG. Last time they played Sydney were 13.5 point favorites. Ended up winning by 52 at the SCG. This time around, Sydney are 4.5 point favorites. Give me Carlton plus 4.5. I'm not sure it's going to make my five, but I lean Carlton here. I just think Sydney, like the market's sort of catching up to how bad Sydney is. Like this is a pretty short number. Getting Carlton with points. I just feel like they're the better team. Sydney haven't been great at the SCG this year. I'm not sure if they've covered a single game. Like they didn't cover against the Lions nor the no the Power either. So yeah, Carlton I'd say is the side. What do you think with this one?
Yeah, a bit of a stay away from me, but yeah, if you are to jump on a team, I'd probably say Carlton here. Yeah, don't have much confidence in it. It's a bit of a hard game to read, I reckon. But yeah, I'd say Carlton or nothing here.
Yeah, exactly. Like if Sydney closes dogs, maybe, but like, yeah, Carlton, nothing right now.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to Collingwood versus Adelaide Saturday afternoon game at the MCG. Last time they played Collingwood were 19.5 point favorites and they won by four, which is also at the MCG. This time around, Collingwood are 12.5 point favorites. So where are you going with this one?
I'm jumping on Adelaide at plus 12.5 here. Um, Fury, I just think Collingwood have had such a good run, and I think I said this last week as well, but it's going to come to an end sometime soon. And yeah, this week might be the week. We've got Darcy Moore that's out of the team, Lockie Schultz out of the team, so they're pretty big players that are not that are going to be missing out. Especially when you have like such a big forward line like Adelaide do. You sort of need those key players in there. So yeah, I've jumped on Adelaide here as the dog.
Yep, give me Adelaide plus 12.5. Yeah, love the pick, mate. Yeah, this Collingwood team coming off a big road win against Freo last week. Come back home on extended rest, yes, but I just think this Adelaide team is obviously really good. We see this matchup every year, man. Like it's Collingwood Adelaide, and it's a really close game, but Collingwood end up winning. So I'll probably tip Collingwood. Am I going to bet Adelaide money line? Probably. But yeah, Collingwood just always finds a way to win these games. It's always a
Yeah.
close game, even doesn't matter if it's at the low level or the MCG. So yeah, you were getting 15.5 earlier on in the week. So down to 12.5 now. Still above 2 goals. So I definitely take the value on Adelaide there. Mate, covering all these spreads makes me kind of hungry.
Hmm. Should we order something from the cake sorority?
Ah, yes, the cake sorority, where every cake is a slice of sisterhood or brotherhood.
Whether you're celebrating a birthday, anniversary, or a glorious cover, the cake sorority has a perfect treat for every occasion.
Shoot them a message on Insta at the Cake Sorority and use the code half a point for 10% off your next order.
That's code half a point for 10% off your next order. Your spread is covered with the cake sorority.
Moving on to Port Adelaide versus Geelong Saturday twilight game at the Adelaide Oval. Last time they played Port Adelaide were 12.5 point favorites. That was the qualifying final last year, and Port Geelong won by 84 points. This time around, Port Adelaide is 6.5 point dogs. Give me Port Adelaide plus 6.5. It's a scary one. Like I don't love this one. Will I be shocked if Geelong wouldn't cover here? Not really. Port Adelaide coming off a big, big emotional game versus the the Crows and Geelong coming off. Almost like not a letdown spot, but a bad performance against the Giants, where they probably should have won that game in the end. So they'd probably be wanting to bounce back here, but I don't know, man. Like we see going on the road, short rest. I don't know. Give me Port Adelaide plus 6.5 here. Again, I'm not saying with much confidence. I do think Port Adelaide are frauds, but I think they're good enough to cover. They're 2-0 as dogs at that low level this year. So yeah, I don't know. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, this one, stay away from me. I pretty much had no read on this game. I was like sort of leaning towards Geelong, but then once again it's Port Adelaide at home as a dog. So yeah, just hard to get a read on this. You do expect Geelong to sort of bounce back after last week's like pretty disappointing loss. Like you said, it was a game that they probably should have won. So yeah, if I had to jump on a team, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably stay far away from this game.
Yep, that's
But
fair. This is my
yeah,
fifth pick, so it's either Carlton or this one that jumps in. I'm not sure which one it is.
yeah.
Cool. Moving on to GWS versus Fremantle, Saturday afternoon game at NG. Last time they played, Giants were 14.5 point favorites, but won by 9. Um, this time around, the Giants are 18.5 point favorites. We're going with this one.
For this one, give me Fremantle at plus 18 and a half. Um, GWS had a big win last week on the road as well. Um, and it's a game that they pretty much expected to lose at Geelong's home ground. But yeah, they did well for their standard to win that game. So yeah, a bit of regression here. I think Fremantle need to bounce back from last week as well, after a loss at home. So yeah, I'm jumping on Fremantle here to cover at plus 18 and a half.
Do they win?
No. No,
Yes,
they
they
don't win.
do. Yes, they do. Give me Fremantle plus 18.5 here. I absolutely love this pick, mate. Mate, we're actually aligned this week.
Yeah.
Frio's definitely the side here. This is probably my favorite pick of the week. I know I jumped on them last week and they lost, but you felt like towards when Collingwood rested those players, you felt like a bit of pressure was on Fremantle. There's absolutely no pressure on Fremantle this week. I feel like they're going to play freely. We see these spots every week. We saw this with the Giants last week, catching a very similar number versus Geelong. Fremantle, I feel like, is in the exact same position here. You're catching 3 goals, and the Giants won. The cover was never in doubt. I feel like this is the one where we see this last year as well, where randomly, like a team just comes and goes on the road and gets a win after a couple of disappointing weeks. So yeah, Fremantle's definitely the side here. It's definitely my favorite pick of the week. I'm having the plus 18.5. You're getting a really good number here. So I definitely take the points. Go easy on the money line, but because you never know. With Fraud Mantle, of course, they're still frauds, like
Yeah.
we say every week. But whereas the Giants aren't fraud, so you can take that for what it is. But yeah, Fremantle is the side here. What great pick there, I think. Moving on to Western Bulldogs versus Essendon. Saturday night game at Marvel. Last time they played, Western Bulldogs were 15.5 point favorites, but Essendon won by 29 in the end. This time around, Western Bulldogs are 24.5 point favorites. Stay away from me. I'd probably lean Western Bulldogs. I can understand why you'd go on Essendon, but we see with the Western Bulldogs side, like obviously I love them, but they can beat up on bad teams. Like usually if they win, they end up dominating. So Western Bulldogs is the side for me, but I don't like it at this number. I need a better number. What do you think?
Yeah, also a stay away for me. I was tempted by Essendon, just because I feel like this is just one of those games that they can cause an upset. Um, and yeah, but Essendon had a good win last week. I don't think they can pack it up with another one, especially against Bulldogs. But yeah, like you said, I sort of like in the back of my mind, like Western Bulldogs could easily just sweep the floor and win by like 50 points here as well. So yeah, definite stay away for me here.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving on to Richmond versus North Melbourne Sunday afternoon game at the MCG. Last time we played, Richmond were 2.5 point favorites, but North Melbourne ended up winning by 13. This time around, Richmond are 9.5 point dogs. Where are you going with this one?
It's a tough one here, but I'm going with Richmond at plus 9.5.
Ooh.
I still like Richmond at the MCG. Obviously they only won by 2 points last week, but taking into account that North Melbourne left it all out there on the field last week, and they did well to draw against Brisbane. So yeah, I think they'll regress a little bit. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with Richmond here with the points.
Don't hate it. I probably lead North Melbourne here, but it's coming up to a point where I'd probably lean Richmond. Under 2 goals, probably lead North Melbourne, but I'm not going to lay points with North Melbourne here. I just think they're the better side. I think Richmond is coming off a huge win last week, and North Melbourne probably I think we say every week there was a handball two away, man. But looking at that game last week versus Brisbane, man, North Melbourne was so bad, man. Just the skill errors. I was like, are you serious? They should have won that game easily, to be honest.
You
But
talking about that last passage of play
oh
where you
my
should have just handballed?
God. Oh my God. Just
That
give
was
the
so hard to watch.
just handball it to your mate right there. He's 10 meters in front of you. He can walk in and like either handball it over the top for a shot on goal. All you need is a point or
Yeah,
go himself. So, oh man, that was so disappointing to see. But we saw that all game really. But I do feel like this North Melbourne team, we saw against Melbourne, they can pile on points. So I do feel like the other side, but I can understand you taking the points here as well.
yep,
Moving on to Brisbane, Melbourne. Brisbane are 31.5 point favorites at the Gabba. Last time they played, Brisbane were 33.5 point favorites, but it was only a 5 point game. This one, it's another stay away for me. I'd probably lean Melbourne, but we see Brisbane in the second half have these crazy backdoors, and we've seen Melbourne give up these crazy backdoors in the second half. So Melbourne could be covering all game and give it away at the end, just like we saw last week with Melbourne Hawthorn. But we've seen also with Brisbane as well against the Western Bulldogs and also against Sydney early on the season. Their second halves were a lot better than their first halves. So. But we see quite often Brisbane at the Gabba don't really cover, except for that one game against the Suns. But other than that, they haven't really covered at all. So I'd understand if you jump to Melbourne, it's Melbourne or nothing here. What do you think?
yeah. I'm gonna jump on Melbourne here at plus 31.5.
Yeah.
Like you said, Brisbane just don't cover there anymore. Um, and if they get proven wrong, that'll be great. But yeah. Also Melbourne, I think they're just. Like they're so close to just playing a 4 quarter game of footy. Last week I think they were pretty unlucky to just sort of give up the game there. So I think if they can just play at least 3.5 quarters of footy, they'll be well within a chance to cover here. Brisbane just they're obviously a good team. They're just I think waiting to peak at the right time, I reckon. But yeah, I've jumped on Melbourne here.
Yeah, yeah, agree with all that Brisbane stuff. Yeah, they could play 3.5 good quarters of footy, be down only 15, and then kick 3 goals late, and you're not covering in the
Yeah,
end. So you're getting a pretty good
yeah.
number here, though. So 5 goals. So yeah, Melbourne nothing. I don't hate that pick. Moving on to West Coast versus St Kilda, Sunday night game at Optus. Last time they played, St Kilda were 32.5 point favorites and end up blowing them out at Marvel. This time around, West Coast are 19.5 point dogs. Where are you going with this one?
To stay away for me, I think I was tempted by West Coast at plus 19.5. But yeah, they're just so hard to trust. Oh, for me anyway. I know you jumped on them last week and you were happy with that one, but yeah, I think they're back at home. They should be able to cover this line. Um, Keeping it a low scoring game as well, I think it would be. But yeah, it's just a bit too risky for me to jump on.
Give me West Coast plus 19.5 and give me West Coast to get their first win of the season here against the Saints. Mate, St. Kilda, we love to jump on them as dogs. We love to fade them as favorites here. This is a great spot to fade this St. Kilda team. Um, obviously they're not as talented as what people perceive. They like to make games really ugly and low scoring against good teams because they have better personnel. So if you get a low scoring ugly game here against the West Coast Eagles, I love catching the points here. West Coast at home obviously is a different team. They almost beat Essendon. They didn't really get close to beating Melbourne, so they weren't as good. They haven't been as good this year at home versus um, the opposition as they were last year. But I still have faith in this West Coast team a little bit. Again, you're catching more than 3 goals at home. It's a long-term winner, a home dog. So yeah, give me West Coast and the points, and give me West Coast to win outright here as well. Absolutely love that one there. All right, so that wraps up our picks for this week. Did you want to run through your potential five?
Yep. So I've got I'm maybe looking at Gold Coast at -6.5. Adelaide plus 12.5. Fremantle plus 18.5. Richmond plus 9.5. Melbourne plus 31.5. What about you?
Yeah, so give me Gold Coast -6.5. That's definitely in. Carlton plus 4.5, not sure. Adelaide plus 12.5, definitely in. Port Adelaide plus 6.5, not sure. Fremantle plus 18.5, favorite pick of the week. Absolutely love it. And finally, West Coast plus 19.5. So that's six, I think, there.
Yeah.
I'll be, yeah, just choosing between Carlton and Port Adelaide there. But yeah, absolutely love this week's slate as well. Again, we're jumping on a bunch of dogs, so it will be four dogs in a favorite for me as well. I think
Yeah.
it'll be the same for you as well, right? So
Hmm.
um, hopefully, a similar week to last week. All we can promise is hopefully a 3-2 week every week. If you both get 3-2 this week, then we'll be really happy and on our way. All right, Cass, closing thoughts before we wrap up here.
Yeah, as always, just looking forward to a good week of footy, good contests. Hopefully the dogs get up, except Gold Coast. Hopefully they get up.
Hey, Gold Coast, I've actually bet -55.5 here. Dead ass at $11.10.
How much you chuck on them?
$20. So it'll
Fair
be a
enough, fair enough.
$200 payout. I'm
Yeah,
gonna jump. I'm gonna jump more on it probably now though. See, but seeing as the numbers going up.
yeah,
But yeah, I've hammered the -4.5, and I've hammered -30.5 as well. Looking at the numbers there, I think that's the best value as
yeah.
well. All right, mate. Here we go. As a reminder, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, see you later.